Always wait until the spinning stops. Gotta wait till the spinning stops and it says you are live. So it says I'm live. If I am live, welcome to the show. This is the Bunker Nation show with Michael Bunker. My name is Michael Bunker. I'm going to be your host for the evening. I appreciate you guys being here. Let me know if the sound is working, if the video is working, if you're out there, if anybody's out there, let me know. We're going to start off with doing the box. So I don't know, maybe people showing up late. Maybe this is not a good day for it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I have plans. I have things I want to talk about, things I want to say, but I have other things to do too. So if you're out there, put a comment in the comment section. Let me know where you are and how things are going. It is hot, hot, hot in Central Texas. I have no idea how hot it is. I have not looked all day. I'm going to type it in real quick. And it's probably gone down a few degrees from the peak. Stupid Weather Underground. They always get my location wrong. Anna, Texas is not the same as Santa Ana, Texas. It's two different places. There's no reason to confuse them. It's 97 degrees right now, down a few degrees, I'm sure, from the peak. Still very humid, and I have been sweltering all day trying to stay out of the heat. Hello, Hava. Hello, Scott. Hello, Pat. You guys just type in where you are, and as you come in, say hi, hit the like button, smash the like button, do all that kind of stuff. Let me know where you're watching from. Subscribe if you're over on the YouTubes. Always like to see the YouTube folks here. Come on in here, pile in. There's plenty of seats. We can social distance. Everybody can sit in their own little microcosm. Hello, Missouri. We got Montana here. We got Miami here. We got a bunch of M's. Scott's down on the Gulf Coast of Texas. All right, y'all. Great to see you. Hope everything's going all right. Weird, wild stuff, as always, going on in the news. As you know, I'm not particularly involved politically in this disaster of a world system you got going on here. But apparently they found out that the, I can't even say it, chloroquinone is saving people's lives. Who would have guessed? Saw that thing go back and forth like 5 times. It's like, no good, no good. Oh, it saves everybody they try. Like, oh, no, everybody's going to die. And then now it's like chloroquinone or whatever, quinine. Long Beach is in the house. Good to see you. Michigan is here. Dragging a ball diamond on foot. All right. I can't top it. There's no way I can. 96 on the coast of Tejas. It's warm. It is warm out here. Hello, Oxford, Arkansas. Glad to see you. Glad you guys are here. We're going to be talking about some logic stuff today, some reasons on how to think stuff, maybe explain what's happening to you when you don't even know what's happening to you. Kafka Traps and Gish Galloping and whatnot, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, who knows? Hello, Kentucky. Hello, Mississippi. I am not an expert on anything to do with any viruses or anything to do with any of that stuff. Yeah, I know you're out. You've been out of logic for a long time. And so I don't make any commentary on that stuff. I don't talk about it. I'm not an expert about it. Don't really care about it. Talk a lot about preparedness and survival, how to live, etc., how to think. A lot of what's going on in the world has nothing to do with viruses or any of that stuff. A lot of it has to do with a death struggle of stupid between opposing forces for who's going to get to take all of the stolen loot and distribute it. Whether it's the conservatives who want to take it all and they want to spend it their way, or you got your liberals who want to take it all and want to spend it their way. You're not going to get to keep any more of it, no matter which one of these people are in power. And so it's just like you're just watching them battle out who gets to take the stolen booty and run off with it. So that's kind of what's going on. Along the way, there are things that happen, and we're watching the news, and I'm not watching the news. I lied right there. I kind of ancillarily watch them. I watch people react to the news, and I can know what happened based on how people respond to it. Yeah, it's getting crazy. It's absolutely. I talk to people who are really, really like reasonable, normal people, and they all say the same thing. It's just absolutely crazy, 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 and it's going to get worse. As I mentioned in yesterday's show, people have no idea what they're flying into. Mentor of mine at one point, I'm trying to get rid of that subscribe thing. Mentor of mine one time, he was a pilot, and I don't know anything about planes, so I'm just going to make up terms. And he was talking about how one time he got in the plane and they were loading up the plane, and a bunch of guys got in the plane. It was a small plane, 4 or 5 people, and they were all really big guys. And he's kind of thinking about where I'm going to go, and they're all excited. They're like, "Yes, give us a tour. We want to go by the old baseball stadium. We want to do this and that." And so he's running down the runway, and he gets about past the point of no return, and there's trees down at the end of the runway, and he realizes they are way overweight. He's got way too much weight on the plane. So they lift off, and he's like sweating it, man. He's thinking, how am I going to get over these trees? And he's pulling back, and he's doing whatever pilots do. The people that are on the plane are all like, "Hey, let's go over there. Let's go fly over there. Let's go do this." And they're all excited and all this kind of stuff. The guy who's flying the plane is absolutely panicked because he doesn't think they're going to make it. And he pulls up, and they barely make it over the trees. And he's like thinning out, I don't know, whatever they do, thinning out the fuel mixture and adjusting things and trying to keep the thing in the air. And they're all like, "Hey, man, let's go do a buzz by this over here. Let's go look at this golf course and all this kind of stuff." He's like, "You guys calm down just a minute. Let me take care of a few things." And he's calm, but he's trying to fly the plane. There's 2 places that you can be in a situation like this. You can be completely ignorant and in absolute peril, and you don't know it, and it doesn't do you any good. You could actually be completely and utterly safe and not know it, and that doesn't do you any good either. This metaphor goes into Christian theology and our security in Christ Jesus and all that kind of stuff, but I'll stop it there because that's not where I'm applying it here. We're all on a plane, and let me tell you, whoever's flying it has no clue what he's doing. And I'm not talking about the president, and I'm not talking about God because he knows what he's doing. I'm talking about the people running things down here, whatever you want to call them. They are. We just took off. We're heading for the trees, and they're fighting. They're fighting over stuff, and so it will help you tremendously to understand. Sorry, happy program. I'm not sure what that means. All right. Hello from down the road, Frank. It'll help you to learn how to think if you understand tactics. And there are logical tactics, sophistical tactics, argumentative debate tactics that are used every day, all the time, against you, and you don't even know it. And so one of the things I try to do on this program, and if you stay tuned to this program long enough, you will have a better than doctorate degree in how to think. And I'm not talking about pushing somebody into some particular political lane. I'm just saying you will understand how reason and logic works, how to analyze ideas, and how to determine whether or not somebody is being honest with you or not. They have master classes, and I like these master classes they're coming out with. I've done a couple of them. I want to get that. You can get like a master class, master pass. Did I just make that up? Where you could do like any of the master. It's like $100 something. I don't have $100 something, but if I did, I would get that. And so they got a master class in like persuasion. They got a master class in like baking goodies. They got a master class. I did the master class in screenwriting, and they've got a master class in negotiation. If they ever do a master class, nasty class, they do a master class in logic and reason or analyzing sophistical tricks or something. I'm the guy for the job. They ought to get me to do that. So these things are being used all the time. Those of you who have followed me for a long time, and there's people on here who have been following me, watching my stuff for 20 years plus, know that I'm usually a pretty easygoing guy. I come across a little prickly. I come across a little bit. I get the term acerbic. People, when they feel like I'm pointing a finger at them, go nuts because they agree with me 95% of the time. And when I'm pointing a finger at somebody else, they're like, yeah, go get them, go beat them. But when they feel like the finger's on them, then I catch a lot of grief because then they're like, why? Why are you being mean? I'm not being mean. I do what I do. This is what I do. And it just seems mean when it's directed at you. And some of this is going to be directed at you. But the only time you'll ever see me get mad, usually, is when somebody's being intellectually dishonest. The minute I determine that somebody is purposely being dishonest, the gloves come off. And you think there are no gloves. So people think like I have the gloves off all the time. That's absolutely not true. I'm like completely bubble wrapped all the time. But the gloves come off the minute I determine somebody is using a known, practiced uh, trick on me, or trying to use one on somebody, and I notice that they're doing. It's almost like what's the movie Tombstone, when like somebody figures out somebody's maybe not Tombstone, some movie where somebody figures out the Cincinnati Kid. They figure out that somebody's cheating, right? You're playing a game, you think it's honorable, and then all of a sudden you figure out. I guess a good one would be Rounders. Rounders, when Worm is dealing off the bottom of the deck, and they're scamming the cops, right? It's a cop game, and then if you haven't watched it, you got to watch it. And so they drag Worm and Mikey out, and they beat the crap out of him, right? That's how I am. Once I find out you're dealing from the bottom of the deck, the gloves come off, and it's going to be really, really, really ugly. And that's even if you're my good friend. Even if you're my, as some people saw this past week, I kicked a really good friend to the curb because he was being dishonest. For whatever reason, I'm not making an assumption on what somebody's reason is, but I know when someone's being dishonest. So let's talk about some of these things. We'll start off with the Kafka trap. What is the Kafka trap? The Kafka trap, the term comes from a Kafka film called The Trial. Basically, what it means is anytime a situation is set up where anything that you say indicates that you're guilty, indicates that you are, whatever the accusation is or whatever it is, that you're guilty of it, no matter what you say. That's called a Kafka trap, and they're set up all the time. You'll see them the most if you watch police procedurals or any of the reality cop shows, because cops use it all the time. That is one of the main tactics that they use to get somebody upset, get them emotional. So hoping they're going to make a mistake. Hello, Ravonda. And so you watch shows, and this has happened to me personally, being pulled over on the side of the road, where a police officer will ask a question. No matter how you answer the question, there is no benefit to you, period. And you sound guilty. So, for example, if a police officer says, may I have permission to search your vehicle? And you say, no, you don't have permission to search my vehicle. Well, why? What are you trying to hide? There's no way. That's not a legitimate and honest question. If I'm trying to hide something, I'm not going to answer that question whatever way you. So whatever way I answer, if I'm trying to hide something, I'm going to lie. There's no benefit to him, and there's no benefit to me. All it's designed to do is to pressure you to allow something that ought not to happen. And that's a Kafka trap. You're going to sound guilty. Some of you may not realize this. When you watch these police procedural shows, or you watch any of these live reality shows, especially like 48 Hours, 100% of the time, I say 100%, maybe it's 98% of the time, the cops are talking to the camera and they're like, we don't have anything. We got to get this guy to confess. Right? If you've watched enough of those shows, you should know that if you're ever in that situation, if you are ever arrested and being held for questioning, you should never say a word ever, 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 other than that you want a lawyer, ever. Even if you didn't do anything. Even if you were walking down the street, minding your own business, and they picked you up and hauled you in for questioning, you always think you're going to say something that they're going to go, hey, Ron, they're going to go, oh, well, this guy didn't do it. They are not in that room to prove you didn't do it, no matter what they say. They're in the back room talking to the camera, going, hey, we got to get this guy to confess. And I've always wondered, these shows have been on for 20 years. And in every episode, the cop goes in there to the perp and he says, or the suspect, and he goes, hey, listen, we know you did it. Well, your friend's already confessed. And they're lying, your friend's already confessed. He's going to turn on you. You're going to do 20 years. We need you to just clear things up for us. And then the guy starts talking, and then they end up getting him. Either get him or something else. Those shows always end the second the guy goes, I want to speak to a lawyer. On all the other shows, they go, this guy got 15 years. This guy got 20 years. This guy got 5 years. This guy, whatever. On the shows where the guy goes, I need to speak to an attorney, almost always you never find out what happened. They never say, oh, well, he was finally arrested and he went to prison. And this is a form of Kafka trap, which means when they ask you the questions are not honest. They're designed to make you look or feel guilty, or feel like you feel that you're looking guilty, so that you'll get nervous or you'll make a mistake, etc. The other form of a Kafka trap is when somebody says something, particularly in the world today, unhappily, because it's a real problem, racism has become a Kafka trap. There's absolutely nothing you can say to any accusation of racism that doesn't make you sound racist. We've already gone through all of the standard answers, and there's already a template out there that says this is racist. Everything is racist. So, hello, Prosper, Texas. Anything you say is racist. That doesn't mean there isn't racism, and it doesn't mean that you're not racist. It means that the term no longer has any meaning because it's being used so wildly. And let me explain why this is happening. A particular group of people, and this is the far left wing of the leftists, have adopted the term racism, have stripped it of any meaning, and basically what it now means is anything that's against us. So this is why you have rich white girls on videos coming out every day now lecturing black people about racism. This is why you have rich, privileged white girls lecturing black cops about racism. And it's gotten laughable because these videos are now coming out every day, where you have like some spoiled white girl going, you don't even know what racism is. And then, the guy's like, well, I'm married to a black lady. I have black children. That doesn't mean you're not racist. See, that's a Kafka trap. There's nothing that guy can say. There's nothing there's a video out there where the girl is accusing the white cop of being racist. She doesn't know him. She doesn't know anything about him, and his black partner sitting there going, "You don't even know this guy." But you can see the Kafka trap illustrated, because everything he says, she immediately ticks off a box in her head that you're a racist. And so then the black guy tries talking to her. She says, like, "I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to him," because, of course, she's in her own trap. There is an agenda behind this. And I want to make sure that people don't think that I think that there's no racism. I'm just saying this particular group has adopted the terminology, and basically it means anybody on the other side of us. So anybody that's out there that's not us, that's what the term means. It no longer has anything to do with race. And there's a prediction for you. If things continue on the trajectory that they're on, within 3 to 4 years, you're going to learn that the term racism no longer even ancillarily applies to race at all. This is why you can have people like Joe Biden, clearly one of the whitest people in the history of the world, say, "If you're not voting for me, you're not black," right? What race somebody is no longer even matters. The terminology has been adopted and has been taken as a cudgel or a bludgeon to be used against all enemies regardless. And that can't go on forever. But that's really a quintessential kind of definition of a Kafka trap. If somebody comes up at you and is shouting at you that you're racist, your immediate reaction how you want to react is to defend yourself. Any defense is seen as guilt. There's no response. I challenge anybody in these comments. So they even, what they've done is they've printed out things to say. They've distributed these things in Hollywood. And if you follow anybody in Hollywood in their social media, you know exactly what those things are. They are canned PR responses. During the whole Me Too thing, see, they adopted that. And they said, "Here's what you say, guys. It's a minefield. You can't say anything. Here's what you say: I'm listening and I'm learning." Doesn't mean it's true. Doesn't mean you're not still a misogynist pig. That's what you say. That's the only thing you're allowed to say. And if you go down a list of any Hollywood people, you will find that in their feed. I'm listening and I'm learning. That's supposed to be what quells the attack, but it doesn't. It doesn't do it at all. It's a Kafka trap. And we are in the midst of one of the largest Kafka traps in history. I adopted my black son and his birth mom, and you adopted his mom? That's pretty cool, I guess. I didn't know adults could be adopted. 15 years. Yeah, you can say communist. And so I'm not taught, this is not, everybody always thinks that the examples that I'm giving is the topic. The topic is not racism. The topic is the Kafka trap. Racism in America today, particularly, is a Kafka trap. There's no longer any room for discussion. It's a bludgeon. It's a tool that's used to bludgeon anyone who's not us, anybody who's other than us. All right. And so let me tell you a little bit about, because it's going to blend together with the next one, how this works, how the mind of the person who uses these tricks works. Very few of them realize what they're doing. Tactics are a tool in the hand of, they could be a tool in the hand of a monkey, or they could be a tool in the hand of a brilliant person. Some people learn tactics on accident. They don't know that it's a tactic. They do something and it works, and so they keep doing it, right? And it's a learned behavior, so that if you witness somebody using an illicit kind of illogical or dishonest tactic and it works, then people will pick it up. They don't ever ask themselves if they should do it. There's not a moral meter applied to it. Okay, I was confusing because it says adopted my black son and his birth mom, and I think you meant and his birth mom and I are. All right, cool. So here's the thing: people adopt these things. Youth, 16 to mid 20s. Today, they're all on social media. They're all on TikTok. They're all on Twitch. They're all on whatever they're on. They learn these tactics by osmosis. They just pick them up. The whole Kafka trap, as it comes to race, is just them all in their sounding box, their bubble, bouncing off platitudes that have been fed to them over and over and over again, and they're the only ones that ever hear it. So there's no voice of reason. At the same time, they're fed responses. If somebody says this, you say this. If someone says this, you say this. If someone says this, that means this. Terms are completely and utterly redefined. So you'll hear this is a dog whistle for this. This is a canard for this. This is just redefining terms to say that terms don't mean anything anymore. They mean whatever we say that they mean. If somebody says, I'm not racist, that means they're racist. If someone says, but I have black friends, that means they're racist. And so they have this checklist and they have all these terms, and they never, ever, ever have to know the person, know anything about them. In order, just sold our house in the city and are moving to more of a secluded area. Awesome. Yeah, species. Yeah, so you're probably right there. It's just these are just tactics, right? And so what will happen when you end up with this type of groupthink is that the groupthink redefines righteousness, holiness, whatever, as themselves. This happens in churches. This happens in all different things. Rather than having an outside standard, okay? The difference between true Christianity and modern Americanized Christianity is in true Christianity, there's an outside standard outside of us, is completely separated from us, to which we can go to examine whether something's true or false, whether or not we're wrong or right, whether something is sin or not. And that outside source is the Bible, is the Word of God. And it was identified and it was agreed upon as to what it was. It was outside of us. So two people could come together and they could debate or they could talk, and there was a standard outside of themselves. What happens with these groups is the standard is developed interiorly, and they define themselves. So righteousness is defined as me, my opinions, my worldview, my group, my club, my sect, my cult is defined as righteous, and everything outside of that is unrighteous, is evil, is sinful, is Hitler, is whatever. Reason is completely removed from all of this. Once you have set yourself up as the standard, as the canon, then everything is measured against you. Nobody can appeal to a higher court. Nobody can appeal to an outside court and go, well, wait a minute. So why people like Forbes and other people get upset when I'm constantly referring to the rules of logic is because they don't like there to be a standard for reason and logic that's outside of themselves. They've already established themselves as the authority, and anybody trying to come in later on and trying to measure what they're saying or what they're doing according to some objective measure, they don't like that. For many years, the term racism has been overused, misused, and has become pointless. However, this time period has seen a resurgence in use. My question is, why does anyone care if they're called a racist? They should not care. The reason that they care is because most of them have already sold off their freedom or they farmed out. I did a video the other day where I talked about, when you move into a city, you farm out all of the human things that people used to do. You farm out your defense, you farm out your security, you farm out all of these things, and in exchange for you farming out all of your freedoms and your responsibilities, you get a stipend and you get a job to go and to live at a certain level of comfort. And so, in the same way, people are afraid to be called a racist because they are afraid of losing that. They've invested time, energy, everything else into this system where they've sold out everything in order to be a part of this culture and a part of this system. And it can be taken apart, it can be taken from them like that. I don't care because I've got cattle and all this kind of stuff, but they can take this show, they can take me off YouTube, they can take it. The people are probably already reporting. Okay, so I'm going to get the stuff you guys are talking about. Don't get too far off topic on me. We're talking about logic, we're talking about reason, we're not talking about racism. Racism is just one of the points. So why people are afraid of being called these things because the cost is super high, even if it's completely and utterly not true. If the cost wasn't that high, they wouldn't do it. If there was no cost, then they wouldn't do it. There would be no efficacy of them using the term willy-nilly all the time for everybody and trying to take people down with it. And so it has to constantly broaden because there has to be a new victimization every day. There has to be a new target every day. If you don't, you lose steam. The system loses steam. So going back to my point, in groups, whether it be a church or whether it be another group, quite often the tendency is to canonize the opinions of the group, to canonize the culture, all of those opinions and thoughts, and then that becomes the standard and everything else is measured by that. And this is what has happened with this group, particularly on the far left, but it happens on the right too. I could sit here and do a whole show of how this stuff happens on the right. I'm trying to make the best examples that people can look at right now and they can see. Now, once you've done that, the next step is that you create a caricature of everything that's not me. So you have the law of non-contradiction, if I have my pen, which simply stated, I messed up. Yes. You can't see that. Anyways, A cannot equal not A in the same way, in the same manner, in the same standard. They've created themselves as A, whereas the canon, everything else is not A. So once you've discerned everything else is not A, so if we're righteous, they are unrighteous. If we're good, they're bad. If we're holy, they're evil. Then the next thing you can do is you can create a caricature. Life itself produces plenty of them. And so you can pull out, we all can do it. The left and the right all do. The right loves to go find this crazy ass pink, purple, blue haired screaming banshee screaming at a camera. And then they use that. This is the face of the modern left. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's just what they do. This becomes a caricature. Then through the propaganda mills for each of the sides, they are fed characteristics of that vision, that caricature of that person, right? That is then what you debate. You don't debate a real person talking to a real people using honest tactics. You debate the caricature. All right. So on the left, anybody who disagrees with them and the slightest bit on anything is racist, misogynistic, Nazi, Hitler, white, patriarchal, go down the list. That's not enough because those words have definitions. And if we're actually going to have an honest debate, we could go down and say, okay, is this misogynistic? Is this? And you would find out in most cases they're not, and then their argument would fall apart. To keep your argument from falling apart, you don't argue those words. Please hit the like button. You argue the caricature, right? So I think he's even in here. Forbes, if you're in here, I'm going to use you because you are the poster boy for illogic. And Forbes is my good friend. We've had a lot of debates. He's a very intelligent guy. He's a good guy. He's my friend. He just um, does not know the rules of logic and doesn't like them. He doesn't like anybody pointing them out. For years, I have had a thing I call the Forbes tactics. There's 3 of them that he uses, and I didn't know there was a name for them. The number 2 one that he uses, I just found out in the last 2 days there's a name for it. It's called Gish Galloping. How does Gish Galloping work? Gish Galloping is when, have you ever been discussing something with somebody on the other side of the fence or whatever, and you say, like yesterday, and you say something true, just something simply true, and you end up being bombarded with all of these other half-truths, misconceptions, mischaracterizations, like 15 and they just keep coming. I used to call this the octopus method. When you're just about to grab the octopus, it'll spray some ink or a squid or whatever and it disappear. When I used to debate people online, it was always through text, writing. You wrote things out, and when you got over the target, the person would just spam a 15-page document, and none of it. You would take the rest of your life to get through it. It would be like nailing Jello to the wall. And they would just dump this stuff. It's mischaracterizations, half uncontextual myths. And so what they do is they create a caricature of you. They're not debating you. It doesn't matter whether you are like me, educated, erudite, knowledgeable in things like logic and reason and Russian literature, well-read. You could have all of these attributes. You could be cosmopolitan. You could be, like I said, erudite and able to discuss any, theology, history, geography, all of these things. I'm using myself as an example. And they're not debating that guy. They're not debating erudite, able to speak really well. Erudite. They're not debating me. They're debating David Duke. Living in a trailer, don't have any teeth, with any number of other characters, right? So everybody's a Southern redneck, trailer trash, ignorant, uneducated, incapable of speaking, inbred, racist. Even if they were sitting across from Solzhenitsyn, that's who they're debating, and that's what and what they do is they begin throwing this stuff at you. So you may say something as simple as, let me think of something I can use as an example. I don't think that there is a salary inequity if you're comparing all of the elements, apples to apples, right? I don't think there's a salary inequity between men and women at high-level jobs. And if everything is taken into account, they don't sit there and go, well, let's look at these things. Let's look at, and lay out a bunch of facts. They'll go, oh, so you're okay with men beating women. You're okay with Harvey Weinstein. You're okay with women have to go up to your hotel room and take off your robe in order to get a job. It gets worse and worse. And it's not just that. There'll be like 15 of them. I used to call this Forbes factor. This is the way Forbes. We used to do a podcast, and it was him and this other idiot, and I would have to sit there, and it was just a barrage, and you don't have time to go through all of it because every one of the things is so bizarre and so stupid and so disconnected with anything. I have no logical connection to anything. It's exactly what the media does. They use Gish Galloping. The second somebody's today, right? It came out that I can't say it, chloroquinone is actually like you have twice as much chance of living if you go in the hospital and they put you on chloroquinone, right? So the media is like, oh yeah, don't have it. So, anyways, what you're saying is, and then they go off on their next bounties against Russian bounties. You never get your feet under you. You never get to sit there. A formal debate, none of this would be allowed to happen. You'd have to have a posit, and you would have to go, okay, so you made these points, and it has to be a limited number of them. Let me refute those points using logic and reason and all those things. They never have to go back and address any points. They just throw all this stuff out there. And it's a tactic that is used because it wears you out. It stops you from ever making a point because you spend most of your time on defense. The way to respond to this is to know what it is. So if you can remember anything, remember the term Gish Galloping, and you point it out in your first response. That what this is Gish Galloping. You're dumping a bunch of nonsense, so much of it that it'd be impossible for me to deal with it all because you don't have a point. You can't refute what I said, and you're just running off into it's like, oh, well, you don't think people ought to have to wash their hands when they work for a restaurant. That's one of Forbes' favorites. If you even hint, first of all, he's as anti-government as I am. But if you even hint at anything anti-government, they're like, oh, he's just a redneck living in a trailer, doesn't think people ought to have to wash their hands when they work at a restaurant. Or somehow wearing a seatbelt is a violation of his moral rights. You could have never, ever said your opinion on a seatbelt or washing your hands at all. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're not debating you. They're debating a caricature of you, and that is because they are a morally weak people who don't care whether or not they're being honest or not. Honesty and integrity ought to mean something. That's why I get mad when I'm debating somebody or somebody people bringing stuff up in the comments and they're being dishonest. I try to point out here's what I'm saying. Here's what I'm talking about. Yeah, you're stepping into a verbal war, but the problem is that it's a war or a fight where you're trying to play by some sense of rules and they're not. Right? So I've mentioned this in some of my writing before. I don't know if you've ever been in a fight. I've been in a couple. Not really as an adult. I mean, I was an adult, but not as a full-grown man. Most people don't pick me out of a crowd and go, yeah, I want a piece of that guy. But when I was younger, stupider, I got in a couple of fights. And generally, when there's a fight, at least in my experience, you're not trying to kill the other person. In other words, it's a fight. They don't pull a weapon or something like that. You're really just trying to get through it without, you want to win, but you also don't want to kill the person. I don't want to go to jail. And so you limit yourself by nature. By nature. I'm talking about reasonable people. I'm talking about people, especially people who are born again. You don't want to do murder. You don't want to, even though it's self-defense, you don't want to kill somebody. I can't even imagine being in a fight and going into it thinking, I want to kill this person. So when you're in the fight, regardless of what you think, you're pulling punches. You're not doing everything that would kill this person if you did it. What you could do. So if you're in that fight and the other person you find out first or second swing, that guy's trying to kill me. Maybe he does pull a weapon. Maybe something else happens. He's eye gouging and stuff like that. You immediately flip into something completely different because you are no longer You thought this was a gentleman's battle. You thought you were in, there were rules. And you got into it and you're in with somebody who doesn't think there's any rules. That changes everything. Guarantee you, your heart rate, adrenaline will go up. It just proof of the point. You are not at a max. You will max out all of that stuff because you realize somebody's trying to kill you. The problem with America today is that one group of people is trying to kill you. And everyone else is still trying to play by rules. You know, you're looking out for people and you're trying to, maybe this thing can work out. Maybe we can use reason. Maybe we can talk to people and go, listen, really, we're going to start. And you guys know me. I'm anti all statutes. Take them all. I don't care. I don't care. Not about any of them. They're just an emblem. But all of a sudden, they're ripping down statues that were actually paid for and put up by slaves, that were dedicated by Frederick Douglass. There's nothing at all that's going to stop any of it because they've lost all reason. They've lost any sense of equity, of fairness, of honor, and so when you see these things, these Kafka traps, the racism thing being used, reductium ad Hitlerum, everybody's Hitler. When you see somebody using a tactic where they are constantly trying to portray you as a character, as David Duke, and not as anything even close to who you are and what you are. It's like this young lady who is accusing this cop. Who, I don't know if the guy's racist or not. That's the difference between me and her, is I don't know because I don't know him. They're trying to remove from the whole situation any knowledge of whether or not it's true, because it doesn't matter. That's why they say it's systemically true. You are systemically racist whether or not you are or not. So anyways, not a topic. I'm talking about racism. I'm talking about logic and reason. Trying to teach you how these things are being used against you. The media is a huge Gish Galloping machine. They never settle on anything and go, you know what? We're going to get to the bottom of this Epstein thing. The Epstein thing is just burst out there to titillate and to confuse, to allow people to try to connect this politician and that politician and this person and that person, and then it's shuffled off the stage and the next one comes down. Right? So we all got pictures, and the war was going on. We got pictures of him with Trump. We got pictures of him with Bill Clinton. We got pictures of him with Hillary. We got pictures of him with Bill Gates. And that all went on, and then the whole thing gets swept off the stage like it never happened. And the media doesn't sit there and go, no, we're going to figure this out. We're going to figure out what was going on here. If there's a pedophile ring, the highest levels of American government and social arts and all of that, let's figure out who it is, because they don't care to know. It was Gish Galloping. 5 minutes later, we're not talking about that. We're talking about, oh my gosh, they got kids in cages on the border. 5 minutes later, we're talking about, oh, it's not about kids in cages. We're talking about this. Oh my gosh, it's not about this. It's now about Russia. Now it's not about Russia. It's about Ukraine. It's not about Ukraine. It's about China. It's about, and you spend 5 minutes on each thing, and you're still trying to figure out the deal or trying to defend this or that, and they've already moved on. Meanwhile, they've compiled it all and they've dumped it on the caricature, and that's you or that's me. So not one of you knows my opinion about the border, walls, and whatnot. Maybe if you've been with me 20 years, you may know that it's a shocking opinion. But see, it doesn't matter what my opinion is because I am outside of their little circle, their little bubble, and everybody outside their bubble thinks what David Duke thinks, or thinks what caricature, racist, KKK, Southern, uh, unerudite, ignorant, inbred cracker thinks. And I could sit there all day and go, well, I have proof that that's not true of me. I have proof that I think differently about this. Doesn't matter. It's a Kafka trap, and they're Gish Galloping you. Hurting the masses is disorienting on purpose. Yeah, it is. You get worn down by it all. It is refreshing when you can talk to somebody and they're honest. It's refreshing when somebody isn't using a tactic with you. And I have videos. Go back through some of my videos. I've done other logic fallacies. Yesterday and the day before, I think we talked about result-oriented thinking. We've talked about other logic fallacies in the past. I took cartoonist Scott Adams to task for he is a master tactician. I like the guy. I like to listen to him. He does some cool things, but he's a tactician. What he does is on purpose, and a lot of it is dishonest. He knows what he's doing, and so and I had at least one video where I exposed a lot of how he does what he does, right? And I like what he's doing right now, pointing out that himself and a lot of other people have been fired or not given promotions or not given jobs, and told particularly it's because you're white. Do I think our country is more divided now, or is that we just know more of everyone's opinions because of social media? I think certainly it was divided before the Civil War. The difference even then, and the times that I remember in the 70s and 80s, talking about busing and things like that, is you could reasonable people who may hate each other, you could actually sit down and listen to them. They used to have, on TV, they would have William F. Buckley and, trying to think of the author that he would get on there and tangle with. But, and you actually could hear, and they didn't shout over each other, and there wasn't a panel of them just screaming things. There wasn't a big Gish Galloping session. They actually somebody would say something, and a lot of that was ugly. They got ugly too. Hey, thank you, Nancy, so much for the super chats are how we get to continue doing this. I appreciate you guys doing it. We're way behind. By the way, I wanted, and I'm going to finish what I'm talking about. I got to get going because it's at 53 minutes. We have a fundraiser going on. We're a little bit less than half. We're trying to get $1,000 to replace my solar batteries in my solar trailer. Some of that money is going to take a little while to get here, but we're still about 500 short. So I'm asking you, if you would, the easiest way you can donate is through Facebook Messenger, because there's no fees either way. It's cheap. It's easy. Nobody pays a fee. 100% of the money goes to where it's going. But you can also just go to my michaelbunker.com site. Just go to michaelbunker.com. Up there in the about here on the page, it'll say partner subscription. Click on that, go down, and you can set up like a monthly subscription, or you can do a instant subscription. And you can become a direct patron there by subscribing. And so I got to talk to you about a few other things. I think I kind of closed up. You guys understand what the deal is with write down Gish Galloping and Kafka Traps, because now you know those. Decades ago, even though there was significant disagreement, there was a common cultural worldview. That's true. That's true. And there wasn't a massive, the largest gaslighting in human history is going on right now, which is to just tell everybody that what you remember never happened. What you actually remember an experience never happened. It was always bad. You were always just getting a Leave It to Beaver view of it, and it never really happened. It's the largest gaslighting project in history, using social media and everything. All right, so I wanted to tell you about a book that I've got out right now. It's not out yet. We're still working on getting it ready. The book's called, and there it is at the bottom, God in the Storm. Go to godinthestorm.com. You can pre-order the book in print, hardback, or paperback. Ebooks will be available very, very soon. This book's going to be a controversial one. It's going to be eye-opening, and you definitely want to read it. It's the first book. I had a book come out last year, which was a Legendarium 2. I think I had one in 2018, but I haven't had a novel like this out in a long time, a serious novel. So go check it out, godinthestorm.com. Get your copy, pre-buy it. Go do it right now after this video is over. And the third thing is, a friend of mine, the guy who wrote God in the Storm with me, his name is Sean Tuen, Sophic Sean Tuen. And he is started this company called Cleanvid. I'm not getting paid by them. Cleanvid is the first thing you're going to put out is it's a type of ad blocker, but it's actually just an extension you put in Chrome. And ad blockers generally like block ads that show up on the page. What Cleanvid does is it blocks commercials. So if you're watching this in the future on YouTube, there may be 12 commercials running during this hour. It automatically finds them and zaps them out. You can watch the whole thing without watching the commercial. Don't tell anybody I told you. It's not available yet, but it's coming out soon. Just want you guys to write it in your mind when it comes out. I'm probably going to hand pick maybe about 10 of you that we're going to give a beta version of it to, and then we'll see how that goes. So yeah, ebook's going to be out really, really soon. You guys are going to be reading this book, and it's going to be probably pretty cool. I'll probably get canceled over it. You'll probably be having to find my videos on like nobodyknowswherethisis.com. All right, y'all. I certainly appreciate Nancy for the super chat. You guys go to michaelbunker.com as soon as this thing is over. Go up there to the partners inscription. You know, donate $10, $20, $50, $100, $500, and we're already there. And it's going to help us have power so that we can do these and do them right. And that's just something that's got to get done. We're a little less than halfway to where we need to be. All right, you guys, appreciate you being here. God bless you all. I love you. Lord willing, I'll see you. If not tomorrow, maybe the next day. We'll see. It's hot, but I'm going to try to stay cool. You guys have a good evening.